Now, we're learning more about the controversial organization known as ACORN and its relationship with Senator Barack Obama. ACORN, otherwise known as the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, has a history of what our next guest calls rough tactics. He also claims it's been involved in some voter fraud and may be to blame in part for the current financial mess. Ken Blackwell is chairman for the Coalition for Conservative Majority, and he is the former Ohio Secretary of State. And indeed wrote a piece for the National Review online called An Acorn Falls from Tree. Thanks very much for being with us, Mr. Blackwell.
Greg, it's very good to be with you.
Is ACORN one of the groups that, in your judgment, pushed banks into making many of the risky, unwise loans that caused this financial crisis?
Within a culture, Greg, where we have moved from a nation of savers to a nation very accustomed to living in debt, any group that pushes folks who are unprepared to handle home loans into that situation under the notion that every American is guaranteed home ownership, right, is part of the problem.
Well, what did they do exactly?
ACORN has been part of that problem.
What did they do exactly, and did they use sort of guerrilla militant tactics?
Well, ACORN is a structure within the left's, political grassroots organization. They operate in two areas, in housing and in voter registration. They have been discredited in the area of grassroots voter organization and registration, in that many of their employees have been convicted of felonies and crimes against democracy, and many of them have been indicted. So that's one area. In the area of housing, they were folks who I think went to the extremes in the Community Reinvestment Act and pushing systems and banks to make loans to folks who were not ready and not bankable at the present moment.
Apparently they threatened and intimidated banks into making the kinds of risky loans that caused the financial crisis. But in addition to that, I want to go back to the crimes that you just alleged. Here's what you wrote. I'll quote you. They, meaning ACORN, are hardcore supporters for the Democratic Party. They employ bare-knuckle tactics. ACORN is plagued by repeated investigations of voter fraud and other crimes. Are you talking, sir, are you talking about trying to fix elections?
Well, what I'm talking about is voter fraud. In many instances, they were convicted of making fraudulent registrations, creating voters where voters do not exist. And Greg, at the heart of our democracy is the integrity of the vote. It is the one place where we are guaranteed an even playing field, right, one person, one vote. And when you defraud the system, sure, you cheat all American voters.
Did Barack Obama help train and organize ACORN?
Oh, absolutely. He was an ACORN trainer and organizer himself. They come right out of the Saul Alinsky School and Saul Alinsky was a radical community organizer who threw everything up against the wall. It was by any means necessary, and Barack Obama comes right out of that school.
Do you believe that there is a direct attempt going on by ACORN and others to steal Ohio, the state of Ohio, in this presidential election, and can that be done?
Well, let me tell you, we have a pretty good system of bipartisan election management, in that we have county boards of elections that are made up of an equal number of Republican and Democrats. I don't think with our transparency that it can be done in the open of daylight.
Is ACORN trying to do it?
Well, let me tell you, here's the problem. They have a history of voter fraud in the state of Ohio, where they made up voters that didn't exist. And so, yes, there have been convictions of ACORN workers across this country, and I think that's the great threat to democracy.
Are they trying to steal Ohio for Barack Obama, who organized them?
Let me put it to you this way. The result of many of their activities will be to defraud the election and do away with any concept of one person, one vote, and that is problematic and deserves a spotlight shined on it. And that's why I think in today's Washington Times, there was an article, a column written by former Senators Rudd and Danforth, which basically said that both sides in this race should have a commitment to vigilance and people on the ground to make sure that nobody steals the election.
Well, and I know you're watching carefully there in Ohio. Former Secretary of State Ken Blackwell, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Greg.